This is Miss Alice, and today I want to be honest with you in a way that most women in my position never are. We destroy good men not with a single catastrophic act, not with anything dramatic enough to point to clearly and say that was the moment. We do it slowly daily with behaviors so normalized inside the culture of modern marriage that most wives do not recognize them as destruction while they are happening. By the time the damage is visible, it has already been accumulating for years. And the man sitting across the table who seems distant and checked out and nothing like the person she married did not become that person because something happened to him. He became that person because of what kept happening to him inside his own home, from the person who was supposed to be his greatest ally. I am Miss Alice, and today I'm going to name 7 specific things wives do every day that are destroying their husbands without realizing it. Not because the wives doing these things are bad people, but because a woman who understands precisely what her behavior is costing the man she loves might make different choices than a woman who has never had it described this clearly. Way number 1, you expect him to know what you need without telling him and punish him when he cannot read your mind. You have a need. It is real. It matters to you. You do not tell him what it is. You wait. You give signals, tones, emotional distance, the specific quality of quiet that communicates something is wrong without naming what the something is. He does not notice, not because he does not care, because he is living in the same house you are living in and perceiving an entirely different set of information about what is happening inside it. So you wait longer? The frustration builds. He asks if something is wrong. You say nothing or you say you should know. And now there is a conflict rooted entirely in an expectation he was never given the opportunity to meet. Here's what this costs him that you are not seeing. Every time he fails to read your mind and receives the punishment of your withdrawal or your frustration or your cold silence, he receives a message about himself. The message that he is failing you, that he is insufficient, that despite his genuine effort to be a good husband, he is consistently missing something he should not be missing. He does not know what he is missing because you did not tell him. But the feeling of failing lands regardless. And a man who feels like he is consistently failing the person he loves without being able to identify what he is doing wrong eventually stops trying to identify. It stops investing in the conversation that keeps producing the verdict that he is not enough. He goes quiet. He withdraws. He stops reaching. And you experience his withdrawal as him not caring. He cares. He simply learned that caring in this direction produces outcomes that feel identical to failing. Tell him what you need directly without the performance of waiting for him to figure it out. The directness that feels unromantic to you is the only thing that gives him the actual opportunity to meet you where you are. He cannot meet you where you have not told him you are standing. Way number 2, you disrespect him in small ways every day and call it honesty. It does not always look like contempt. That is what makes it so difficult to name and so easy to continue. It looks like finishing his sentence before he finishes it. Like correcting him in front of other people over something that did not require correction in that moment. Like the eye roll that arrives before he has completed the thought. Like the tone that carries something underneath the words. Something that communicates. He is slightly less than what he should be. Each individual instance has an explanation. Each one feels justified in the moment. He did say something imprecise. He did handle something differently than you would have handled it. He did give a wrong answer to the question someone asked him at dinner. But what accumulates across dozens and then hundreds and then thousands of these moments is not a collection of reasonable corrections. It is a verdict. The verdict that in your eyes he is someone who regularly needs correcting, whose judgment cannot be trusted to speak without your review, whose standing in the room is something you have the authority to reduce when it serves the moment. He feels that verdict in the specific place where a man feels things from the woman he chose. Deep, permanently in ways that do not reverse with an apology or a good day or a period of warmth that follows a period of diminishment. What leaves a man when respect leaves a marriage does not come back easily. It is the part of him that was willing to be fully present with you, the part that brought himself completely into the relationship rather than the managed version that learned to protect itself from the steady erosion of being treated as someone who consistently falls short. You did not set out to take that from him, but you took it one small disrespect at a time. And the cost is the marriage you have right now instead of the one you could have had. Way number three, you withdrew intimacy and told yourself it was normal. The intimacy disappeared from your marriage so gradually that you cannot identify the exact moment it became what it is now. What you do know is that it became conditional somewhere along the way, available when everything else was right. When he had behaved to your satisfaction, when you felt connected in the other ways before the physical way became available, when your mood permitted it, when the stars aligned in the specific configuration that made you feel like it was something you wanted rather than something you were providing, you probably tell yourself, this is how it works in long marriages. That desire naturally diminishes that what you are experiencing is ordinary and unavoidable. It is not. What is happening is that intimacy became a performance review, something he might qualify for depending on his recent behavior, rather than something that exists between two people who chose each other. And here is what that does to him that no amount of explaining his needs communicates as clearly as I need you to hear this. Every time he reaches for you and is denied, he receives information about his desirability, about his standing with the person whose desire for him should be the one thing in his life that does not require him to earn it fresh every time. He does not experience the rejection as you being tired or you being stressed or the conditions not being right tonight. He experiences it as not being wanted by you by the person he committed his life to. That experience does not accumulate neutrally. It builds a specific kind of distance that is different from every other kind of distance in a marriage because it touches the part of him that needed to be desired for reasons that had nothing to do with what he provides or fixes or earns, just desired by you. When that disappears from a marriage, the man does not simply adjust and continue normally. He adjusts, but not toward you, away from the vulnerability of reaching for someone who keeps communicating through their response that reaching is not welcome. And the man who stopped reaching is not the man who stopped wanting connection. He is the man who learned that connection here comes with a cost he can no longer afford to keep paying. Way number four, you made him feel useless in his own home and wondered why he stopped engaging. He loaded the dishwasher. You reloaded it the right way. He handled the situation with the children. You explained afterward what he should have done instead. He made a decision about something in the household. You explained why it was not the best decision. And here is how it should have been handled. None of these individually seems like much. Each one had a legitimate reason. The dishwasher genuinely is more efficient loaded a certain way. You genuinely do have more experience with how the children respond. Your reasoning about the decision genuinely was sound. But look at what he received across dozens of iterations of this pattern. He received the consistent message that his way of doing things is wrong, that his judgment about ordinary household matters cannot be trusted to produce acceptable results, that the most efficient path for everyone involved is for him to either do it your way from the start or step aside and let you do it. So he stepped aside, not because he is lazy or disengaged or does not care about the home, because trying reliably produced the experience of being found insufficient. And a man who has been found insufficient enough times in enough areas of his own home eventually stops trying to be sufficient. Not dramatically. Through the specific quiet withdrawal of a person who learned that effort here produces criticism rather than contribution. He stopped engaging with the home. You noticed and said he never helps. You did not connect the helping that stopped to the helping that was corrected until it was no longer worth offering. Let him do it his way. Not because his way is always better. Because a man who feels capable and trusted in his own home is a man who stays invested in it. The alternative is the man you are frustrated with right now. You built him one correction at a time. Way number 5. You misread his calm as indifference and punished him for how he is wired. Something difficult happened. Something that required emotional processing. Something that you needed him to feel with you in real time in the specific way that you feel things when they are happening. He stayed calm. He focused on what needed to be done. He problem solved. He addressed the practical dimensions of the situation without matching the emotional intensity you were bringing to it. And you interpreted his calm as evidence that he did not care, that something was wrong with him, that a man who loved you properly would feel this the way you felt it. He felt it, just not in front of you, just not in real time, just not in the form you recognized as feeling because it did not look like your feeling. Men are wired to compartmentalize under pressure, to set the emotional dimension aside during the crisis, and process it separately when the immediate situation has been handled. This is not emotional avoidance. It is not indifference dressed up as composure. It is a fundamentally different processing style that has served men well across every environment that required a clear head when a clear head was most needed. His calm in your storm is not him failing to love you adequately. It is him being exactly who he is wired to be. What you have done with that calm across years of interpreting it as indifference is teach him that his natural response to difficulty is something you will punish him for, that the composure he brings is not appreciated as strength but received as absence. So he learned to perform emotion in the moments you needed it. Or he learned to stay away from the situations where his natural response would be misread again. Neither of those produces the genuine connection you're looking for. What produces it is understanding that his calm is not the opposite of his love. It is one of the ways his love expresses itself when the situation requires his strength more than his tears. Way number 6. You control everything and call it caring. You have a vision for how the household runs, how decisions get made, how things should be handled, and in what order and by what standard. That vision is detailed. It came from somewhere real in you. It reflects your values and your preferences and your understanding of what a well functioning home requires. And you apply it to him. His approach to parenting, his use of his time, his financial decisions, his social behavior, his priorities, his way of doing the things that need doing, all measured against your standard, all found to be either acceptable or in need of correction, depending on how closely they align with how you would have done them. You do not experience this as controlling. You experience it as caring, as maintaining standards, as doing what needs to be done to keep the household and the family functioning the way they need to function. He experiences it as living under permanent management. As a man who cannot be trusted to handle anything without oversight, whose judgment in his own home is provisional until confirmed by you, who is not a partner in the shared enterprise of the life you built, but an employee who is consistently underperforming by the standards of a manager he never agreed to report to. That experience does not produce a more engaged husband. It produces the passive one you're frustrated with, the one with no initiative, the one who waits to be told what to do because taking initiative reliably produces the experience of having done it wrong. You manage the initiative out of him, and now you are managing the absence of it. The control that felt like caring was the thing that took his investment in the partnership and turned it into compliance with your preferences. Those are not the same thing. And a marriage built on compliance is not a marriage built on partnership. It is a marriage waiting for the day when complying becomes less tolerable than leaving. Way number 7, you are in love with the marriage you imagined and resentful of the one you actually have. Before you knew him, there was a version of this, of the marriage, of the life, of what it would feel and look and sound like to be with the right person. That version was assembled from everywhere. The curated presentations of other people's relationships, the specific romantic ideal that culture spent decades convincing women was available to them if they simply held out for it. And then there was him. Real, specific, particular in all the ways that actual people are particular rather than generic. The way romantic ideals are generic with his specific strengths and his specific limitations and his specific way of moving through the world. That is not the way the ideal moved through the world. And the gap between him and the ideal became the story of your dissatisfaction. Not because he is failing to be a good man or a good husband, because he is failing to be the character you wrote before you met him. Every time that gap produces frustration, you direct it at him. He receives the dissatisfaction as evidence that he is not enough, not exciting enough, not romantic enough, not the version of a husband that would finally make the marriage feel the way you imagined it should feel. He has been receiving that evidence consistently. And what it produced in him is the specific and permanent withdrawal of a man who understood somewhere along the way that he was never going to win a competition. He did not know he had entered. The ideal you are comparing him to does not exist. It never did. It was assembled from the unrealistic inputs of a culture that profits from female dissatisfaction in ways that your marriage cannot survive. The man in front of you is real. His loyalty is real. His showing up every day is real. His choosing this life and this marriage and this version of ordinary over and over without the recognition that choosing deserves is real. That reality is worth more than any fantasy, but only to a woman who is willing to see it clearly enough to value it. The women who made that choice, who looked at the real man and decided he was worth choosing over the imagined one, are living inside marriages that the women still chasing the fantasy are quietly envying. Not because their marriages are perfect, because their marriages are real, and real is the only thing that lasts. Here is what I want every wife watching this to understand. These 7 things are not signs that you are a bad person. They are signs that you are a person who has been operating from patterns that feel normal because they are common. Because nobody told you clearly enough what they were costing the man beside you. He did not disappear from your marriage. You made the environment one that he could not fully inhabit. And the distance you are feeling is not the distance of a man who stopped loving you. It is the distance of a man who learned that being fully present here costs more than he has left to spend. That does not have to be the end of the story. But changing it requires looking honestly at your part in building it, not at what he is doing wrong, at what you have been doing daily that he has been absorbing without you seeing the accumulation. The marriage you wanted is still possible, but it is on the other side of that honest examination. And the man you married is still there, waiting to find out if the environment is going to change enough to make it safe to come back. I want to hear from the men watching this. Which of these 7 things has cost you the most? Not the most dramatic, the most consistent, the one that arrived so regularly you stopped noticing how much it was taking from you? Tell me in the comments, because the men reading this who are inside this right now need to hear from the men who can name it clearly. And to the wives watching this, one question. If he described his experience of your marriage honestly, would it sound like any of these 7 things? Sit with that question before you answer it. This is Miss Alice, and I will be back with more of what nobody else will say. Subscribe if you're ready to keep hearing.